And good evening and welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. My guest this evening is Susie Beckman, who's the Economic Development person for the town of Old Saybrook. Susie, welcome.
Always nice to be here.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And you?
I'm great. Long time no see.
It has been a while.
And we were joking before that we're missing someone. Usually,
I know.
it's you, me, and there's a, let's see, how should we say this nicely? Third wheel?
My boss?
Yeah,
yes.
him.
I generally don't call him a third wheel in public, but
right.
yes, my boss. He sends his regrets that he couldn't be here.
I know. He's probably at another meeting or governing the town.
He's governing.
But he's well?
He's doing well.
He's well?
Yep, he's been busy. We have a lot of things going on in Old Saybrook, and he's the leadership that's making a lot of it happen.
Exactly. I was going to say, we got a lot going on in the town of Old Saybrook. Where do you want to start?
Well,
Yes.
recently, and what people have probably heard about is the TIF, the tax increment financing. Old Saybrook recently had a public hearing and a town meeting and voted to approve a tax increment financing master plan and district for Mariners Way. And I think you're familiar with Mariners Way.
Absolutely.
It's the area that is, if you're thinking about Old Saybrook and Route 1, I always put my hands up because
That's okay.
I'm thinking of Old
Keep
Saybrook,
going.
the map. So it's bordered by the Middlesex Turnpike on the west side and the Connecticut River on the east side. And it is bordered by I-95 to the north and the railroad tracks, the Amtrak tracks, to the south. So it's a section of Old Saybrook, the farthest east section of Route 1, essentially, that we're calling Mariners Way. And that area has been a focus for several years, since, well, almost a decade now, since 2012.
Wow.
Carl began the program there, Carl and the town planner, looking at that area and devising plans to revitalize it. And the most recent approval of this TIF, the tax increment financing, is just one more step that brings us closer to hopefully revitalizing that entire area. So I can tell you what a TIF is. Do you want me to tell you what a TIF is? Okay, so a TIF is a relatively new economic development tool that the state of Connecticut has allowed towns to use. It's called a tax increment financing district, and it is not a new tax. That's very important to understand because it's very easy to confuse it with a new tax, especially since it has, the word tax in it.
Exactly.
So it's not a new tax, but what it does is it creates a baseline with the tax revenues that are collected now from a certain collection of properties that are identified by the town. So that collection of properties is called a district.
Yes.
It's a very specific, and it is, we went property by property to determine which properties should be included in this district. And all of them are within those boundaries of Mariners Way that I just was telling you about. So that district is from the tax revenues that are collected now. The same amount will continue to go into the general fund. So as those tax revenues are collected, the amount that is collected now will continue to go into general fund. Now in the future, as that area gets revitalized, we anticipate that some of those property values are going to increase because they will be improved. A portion of the increased revenues from the increased values of those properties will still go into the general fund, but 50% of those increased tax revenues that are going to the town will actually be set aside in something like a savings account. And that savings account will be used to reinvest in the Mariners Way tax district. So that's, or TIF district, sorry, I used the term incorrectly. It's a TIF district. So that money will be set aside and it'll accumulate, we hope, as things revitalize, that will accumulate over time, and the town will then be able to use those funds either as incentives or to improve the infrastructure out there, improve the roads, maybe put in a bike ped path that connects town center down to Ferry Point. There's a whole range of things that can be done. And I have a prop. Can I show you my prop?
Absolutely.
I brought props.
All right.
So this is actually the plan. And this is on the town website.
Okay.
Or on the economic development website. It's
Yep.
under Mariners Way. And it is the entire plan that outlines what the district is and what tax increment financing is and the different things that might be invested in with that money in Mariners Way. So
I'm
all
sure
this,
you've read that over the last.
yes, I have
probably
read
wrote
it
it.
multiple times. I didn't quite write it. We had a consultant help us, but I did read it multiple times. But it's a product of the town, and it's a very important tool that the town can use. And one of the more important things about it is that every year there will be an advisory group that comes together, the TIF advisory board, and they will take a look at potential projects in the area and determine if there are funds in that savings account that I mentioned, the TIF money that's set aside, to see if there's money in there and if those projects are worthy of having the investment. So, and there may never be a project worthy of investment. It's up to that advisory board, and then that advisory board makes a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, and ultimately the town actually has to approve any expenditures on improvements or investments in that TIF district.
Town
so
vote,
there's
referendum?
It has to go to a town meeting.
Okay.
So there's a lot of local control about how all of that money has been organized to be collected, and then how it will be spent.
Very cool.
So, and the program will sunset after 20 years. The program will sunset. At that point, the town can determine whether or not it wants to continue, and create a new one, or maybe not.
Let it be.
Let it be.
Let it be. Wow.
So that's the latest with Mariners Way, and that was a good 6 months or so of work.
Okay.
And I know that the town planner had identified tax increment financing in the original Mariners Way plan, and Carl had read up on it and had familiarized himself with the new program that the state had, and they had thought about it for some time and were ready to move it forward, and it was the right timing to do that.
Very cool. So I understand that there's a whole bunch of economic development going on in the town of Old Saybrook.
Well, in addition to what's happening in Mariners Way, there's actually more going on in Mariners Way.
There, all right. Well,
we have not just the tax increment financing or the TIF that was happening over the last 6 months, but over the last 6 months, after we did a study, you may remember that there was a study done about Mariners Way, and we looked at different planning options, we looked at market feasibility of projects, and an entire study was put together. And after we received that, we still had some money left in the BAR grant, the Brownfield Area-Wide Revitalization Grant that the town had received. So we're using some of those funds to come up with a marketing plan and some marketing tools, and so that we can market that entire area to potential developers.
Cool.
We want developers to come in, take a look at that area, especially since we might need some specialized developers that have worked in brownfields, with brownfields before, because there's a large chunk of land, 18 plus acres, right in the center of that Mariners Way area that is currently on the market and needs to be cleaned up because of some of the environmental issues that have been there. But the environmental issues are not as severe as they could have been, according to the environmental engineers that did an assessment of the property.
Okay.
So the news is good all the way around. So we're pulling together some of these marketing materials so that we can market the entire area, but also some of those concepts that came together in the study that was just done. And so recently we've just completed 2 videos. Marketing videos. So you guys are familiar with that.
Oh yeah.
You use that media all the time.
Of course.
So we got into creating some videos. One of them is looking specifically at Mariners Way so that we can identify the area, talk a little bit about the town, but more specifically about Mariners Way and the opportunities there. And then a second video that was made is more of an overall town-wide video to give developers a broader sense of what Old Saybrook is about.
I think I saw that on Facebook.
There's one very similar to it on Facebook.
Yes.
Yes, but the one on Facebook was actually done by an intern. I'm going to give a plug to our intern from last summer.
All right.
Whose name is Joey Jenga.
All right.
And he was an environmental engineering major at WPI.
All right.
He's a terrific. He did a terrific job for us, and is now going to be working for Ty and Bond, actually, an environmental engineering firm that does a broader range of things as well.
Very cool.
And he actually is from Old Saybrook, and he was looking for an internship. He came in and he did a number of things for us related to Sustainable Connecticut, but also knew we wanted a video, and he was just using his drone and enjoyed it as a hobby, so he put something together for us, and that's what you've seen on Facebook. He did a great job with it. Yes,
he did.
And the thing has gone wild. We're pretty new to social media and Facebook in the Economic Development Office, and trying to use that to help promote the town. And that had the greatest reach and more responses than we've ever seen as a town. 140,000 different. In terms of reach, 140,000 different people may have seen it on their feed, and close to 40,000 actually reacted to it in some way, either a comment or a share or something like that. And for us on Facebook, it was really remarkable. So we're very pleased with that. And as a result, we're actually seeing higher numbers in terms of people seeing what we put up on Facebook on a regular basis now. So it's been really good for us.
I was going to say, your Facebook page gets updated regularly?
We try. I say we. It's a lot of me. You know, I try to do that. I do. And some of the programs that you've worked on, your Ronald McDonald.
All right.
Fundraising programs always go on that page.
Absolutely.
We like to help promote that in the town as well, because it's part of the community. We like people to know what a terrific community we are, and we hope it eventually spreads out beyond Old Saybrook so that we can attract businesses and residents.
Would you mind sticking around for another segment?
I'd be happy to.
We'll be right back.
Kids will spend 15 minutes watching online videos like this one.
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes twice a day. They have the time.
Looks like it's done.
Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. You can't see these microbes, but they might be there. So learn the right temperature to cook each type of meat. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov.
And welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. Sitting here with Susie Beckman from the town of Old Saybrook. Susie, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we talked about Mariner's Way and all that other fun stuff going on in the town of Old Saybrook. Let's talk about Married on Main.
Married on Main.
Okay.
I will be happy to talk about Married on Main. Let me go into just, can I backtrack just a minute? Because we were talking about the videos.
Go.
Just a quick let you know that the town and the Board of Education are working cooperatively, because the Board of Education recently put together some videos. So we're going to do, the superintendent and I are going to start to talk to different businesses around town and see if they want to use our videos or link to our videos on their websites or through their social media to help share the information about the schools and about the town itself.
Very nice.
So that's some of our general marketing, and we're really using some of the tools that we've been able to create in many different ways. So that's one of them. But okay, so Married on Main.
Yes.
All right, back to Married on Main. So this is a new concept that was brought to us by the owner of the James Pharmacy and the Deacon Timothy Pratt House on Main Street in Old Saybrook, Eileen Sotile Angelini. And she was relatively new to Old Saybrook a couple of years ago. Now lives in the area with her husband. And she came and talked to me at one point. She said, you know, you could get married by using all of the services practically on Main Street in Old Saybrook.
Ah, gotcha.
You wouldn't have to go anywhere else. You could come to town, you could walk down Main Street, you could find a church, you could find the town green, you could find the Kate for your ceremony. You could get your tux at Collins Tuck Shop.
Yes, you
You
can.
can get your flowers at Mar Floral. You can get your cake at the 3 different bakeries that we have in town. We've got Shayna Bees by the Sea. We've got Dagmar. We have Pursuit of Pastry. That they all do fabulous things, and they all do slightly different things. You can do your reception down at Saybrook. Oops, I'm losing my props.
Making a mess.
I am. I apologize.
That's okay.
Wait, let me put myself back together.
There we go.
So you could do your reception at Saybrook Point Inn, or if you have something smaller, you could do it at the Deacon Timothy Pratt House, or you could do it at the Kate, or you could do it at Penny Lane Pub.
There you go.
Or if you want to do your rehearsal dinner at Aspen or Penny Lane Pub, or at someone's home and have it catered.
There you go.
There's a catering company that works with Aspen, and I'm trying to think, what else do you have with the wedding? Oh, the mother of the bride.
Wow.
The dress.
Yes.
Tamar. You could get a dress at Tamar.
Okay.
You could get. So we have just about everything
Everything's there.
you need.
That's what that is.
Right on Main Street.
Okay.
So there's a coalition of these businesses that has started talking and working together, and they're getting organized so that they can market themselves as a wedding destination and make it easier for people. Think about how easy it is.
There you go.
You could come to me at Town Hall and I could introduce you to so many people who could help you organize your wedding and get it done.
And what I didn't know, and I actually learned this not long ago in one of the local newspapers, the illustrious first selectman of the town of Old Saybrook is a justice of the peace.
There you go. That's right.
think.
He did. He is.
He is.
did a
He
wedding not
mar-
that long ago, actually.
Because his picture was in the paper, and I'm flipping through the paper. I see him marry. I'm like, he's a JP? I didn't know that.
Yep. There are a lot
That's
of JP. Right. You could get a justice of the peace and get married.
Just walk
and
into
you could
the first selectman's
That's
office
right.
and say,
There's a great
Marry me.
story with that. The story you were looking at in the paper was probably the couple that met on the pickleball courts.
yes.
They were the pickleball players.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I thought that's a great story.
Speaking of pickleball, how are the pickleball courts going?
Oh, very well.
Yeah?
They
Cool.
are used. They've been a great choice.
I've never played.
I haven't either, but it
Well,
looks like fun.
Well,
I know.
we'll have to get the first selectman to take us go play pickleball this
There you
spring.
go. And you can get your rackets right in town
There you Aha, gotcha.
and park right there.
There you go. Wow. You
So
guys-
that's Married on Main, but it was a great concept. So we're pulling it together. We want to do a website. And when I say we, I really mean the businesses.
Right.
I've been involved just trying to help coordinate things.
Yep.
But it's a terrific group of businesses. And they've actually booked a couple of weddings at this point from people meeting the different businesses on Main Street and getting their services and planning their events here on Main Street.
Cool. Speaking of businesses in the town of Old Saybrook.
Yes.
Good segue. Here's we go. Let's give a couple business updates.
Okay.
Let's start with the former bowling alley.
The former bowling alley. I know a lot of people have called and they're unhappy the bowling alley's gone. I don't know if you ever went there and had your birthday party, but I know that.
was actually there right before it closed.
Oh, okay.
So
it's a great spot.
It was.
People enjoyed it, and unfortunately, it was closed.
Right.
So the property sat for a long time, and then a gentleman did end up buying it. The property went to auction, and the gentleman who bought it, and it's actually the same person who picked up the former North Cove Outfitters building on Main Street.
Really?
A gentleman who likes Old Saybrook.
All right.
So he had redeveloped that Main Street property, saw the old former bowling alley, and thought there could be something really nicely done over there.
All right.
So he bought that, and he is now developing that. Agway is going to be a major tenant.
Okay.
So they've raised the bowling alley, and they're going to put up an Agway.
Right.
And there's also going to be a drive-through Dunkin' Donuts. I think that's big news in town. People are going to like to have that drive-through
Absolutely.
Dunkin' Donuts.
When?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly when. I know that everyone's probably noticed that they started working on it, but
They did. I
I don't
actually saw
know
it this
when.
afternoon.
I would think they're probably targeting
Probably the spring.
summer. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, well, spring.
Yeah, spring,
Certainly,
summer.
they'd love to be open. I don't know if they'll make that or not.
Yeah, and I also don't know what they're going to do with the other locations currently in Old Saybrook.
I don't know either. I don't know if one of them might. You mean the
Yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts might move? I don't know what the plans are there.
I'm not sure about that. Let's see, what else are we talking about? How about the sale of the former Donnelly printing site?
So you and others are probably familiar with Donnelly's site. It's 50 Schoolhouse Road, and locally known as the Donnelly site. Donnelly's used to be the printer of Life magazine
Right.
and many other magazines, and they
Right.
actually used the railroad. They printed the magazines here with huge printing presses that I heard were 2 or 3 stories high.
Wow.
Massive. So they put through massive numbers of magazines there and would use the railroad to actually ship them to various places. But that shut down around 2000,
Yeah.
I believe. And the property was sold as a portfolio of properties. And someone picked it up, and it's been sitting ever since. It's had some tenants in it, and smaller tenants. And but the building, many parts of it were falling into disrepair.
Okay.
And just this past December, it went up to auction. And in January, it did sell. And it was in the paper that it sold. So that property has been sold. And there, as far as we know, there have been no permits filed to really change the property significantly.
Okay.
As far as we know, they're going to be working on just repairing things at the building.
All right.
They probably will use some of it for warehousing. They plan to keep the tenants that are there. They want to have them there, and
Right.
might have some additional space to lease out as well.
Do we know to who?
We do know it was Ocean State Job Lot.
Aha.
They're looking for a staging area where they can warehouse many of their products.
Wow.
And I guess they're expanding into, I heard they were expanding into other areas.
Are they?
So that business has been going very well for them,
Cool.
and we're glad that they found a place in Old Saybrook that might work for them, especially since it's that building that has been sitting vacant,
I was gonna
mostly vacant for a long time.
I was going to say, I've never been in that building.
Oh.
I know where it is, and down the side street over by the high school. I know where it is, but I've never.
It's a 300,000 square foot building on a 30-acre site. It's just a really, really large property. It's
Wow.
huge. Yeah, it's hard to even understand. You know,
Wow.
I have trouble getting my brain around it. But it's nice to know that someone will be fixing it up and using it.
Very cool.
It is. It's
Wow.
very good.
When's that gonna? When's Ocean
I
State
don't
gonna
know.
move in?
I don't know how quickly things are going to move for them. But I do know they want to be using that warehouse for warehousing sooner rather than later. So
I understand the
I
warehouse is
assume
probably
they're going to be
pretty
moving forward with
substantial.
things. Sure. Yep. They plan to put some investment into it.
Cool.
Yep, which is great for the town.
Very nice.
We're glad for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wild Birds.
Wild Birds Unlimited was just a business that just opened in town. So I want to say welcome to them.
Absolutely.
It's a franchise.
Okay.
And I don't know how familiar you are with the Connecticut Audubon or the Roger Torrey Peterson Estuary Center.
Not very, but I've seen.
Okay.
I know the name.
Right. So there is Roger Torrey Peterson was someone who wrote a lot about birds.
Okay.
Very famous for writing about birds, and he lived in Old Lyme.
Cool.
And so there is now a center there. Connecticut Audubon has a center in Old Lyme called the Roger Torrey Peterson Estuary Center. And they do a lot of programs. And we actually invited their representatives over to Old Saybrook in the preserve when we did a Better Connecticut segment on Channel 3.
Ah.
It was a little segment that was done about the preserve and different recreational activities in Old Saybrook. So we talked about some kayaking, we talked about golf, we talked about the beach and other things you can do. But I don't know how many people might be aware of the fact that the preserve and the Connecticut River are what The woman from the Roger Torrey Peterson Estuary Center called I-95 for birds in their migration patterns. So it was, that's what she called it. So in the spring and fall in particular, you will see species of birds that you may not normally see here, but even in the summer and now in the winter, you're going to see a number of different species of birds here in Connecticut throughout the year that are really interesting, and the preserve is a wonderful place to explore and see even in the winter.
And I understand we also have a new restaurant in town.
Little Pub did
There you
open.
go.
Yep,
There
Little
you-
Pub opened last fall. That was a significant change
I was
for
going to
us.
say I saw that building going up and ground up every day for however long it took to be open. So.
Yep, it took them longer than they had hoped.
You did.
Yeah, they were a
You
little
did.
frustrated with that, but we're glad to have them here, and they seem to have been very busy.
Susie
since they
Beckman, we're
opened.
about to run out of time, but before we do, I want to thank you for coming down, and we'll see you again soon.
It's always good to be here. Thanks
It is.
so much, Pete, for inviting me.
Not a problem. On behalf of Susie Beckman, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks, good night, and we'll see you next time.